as a factual matter, like this notion that like something cracked in Trump and when he lost in 2020 and then he got really crazy. Like I think Trump's been like kind of steadily becoming just a little by little, a little more crazy, since like 1982. Hello and welcome to the Bulwark Podcast. I'm your host, Tim Miller, a little hoarse, coming off a wonderful weekend in Denver. I'm with Bill Kristol right now. It was really a marvelous weekend. Part of the reason why I don't have a voice right now, we had, I think, 550 of y'all came out. You met my mother. We chatted afterwards. We had beers. I got a wonderful package from someone. I didn't catch your name. I'm sorry, but thank you for that. And, working the rope line. I'm not like Joe Biden. I don't have the Joe Biden vigor to work a rope line, and then also go to Gay Pride where I saw some of you, and then also maybe I saw Widespread Panic last night. So here we are on Monday. It's been a big weekend at my home in Denver. I'm back in the basement. I'm excited to be here with Bill Kristol. How you doing, Bill?
It's tough being a celebrity, Tim, but I sympathize with you. I've seen it up close when not myself, of course, but when I worked for Vice President Quayle, I was always struck that that's a tougher part of the job than people appreciate, just the pure rope line politeness, but also, keeping sane and stable and avoiding totally crazy people. So you get a horrible clip out there, but also being, as I say, being nice to people and then talking and so forth. So I'm impressed that you're in as good shape. I'm impressed that you're not taking a week off now,
No, I can handle it. But my voice cracked on the first intro. So we're keeping it in the lower register today, this morning. All right, Bill. Donald Trump, I don't know if you know this, but he has a penchant for lying. And he did some lying over the weekend, and some serious lies, but also some silly ones. And I'd like to start this little palate cleanser with an interview he did with my former boss, Sean Spicer. I guess it is interesting to think that 2012 RNC comms team we now has spurned two media careers. We've gone different directions, though. You can compare and contrast my Polis interview with the Sean Spicer work in his interview of the disgraced Donald Trump. Let's take a listen.
You look at our airports where flights are being delayed 4 days, where people are pitching tents in an airport because their flight is so, it's never going to even happen. We've never had problems like this. What you're seeing in the last 2 years, we've never seen anything like it. And we become like, we are a failing nation. We've become a third world nation in many ways. Our elections are third world, in my opinion. Our airports are being run so badly. It's so badly. It's not even conceivable. People go, the other night I had somebody going to the airport and they called up 2 days later to tell me that they've never gotten out. I said, but where are you? Still at the airport. And it was like 2 days before. And this is common now.
Oh, really? Yeah. When was the last time Donald Trump was on a commercial flight? Bill, what were your thoughts about that?
What are the odds that phone call really happened? I mean, just someone who just picks up the phone and calls Trump, hey, just letting you know I'm still at the airport 2 days later.
Still stuck in San Antonio, 48 hours.
Yeah, at the West Palm Beach airport after leaving Mar-a-Lago. I think, no. Ludicrous, obviously, very Trump-like in the sense that it's so ludicrous, you almost, I don't know, you don't take it seriously, and therefore you just lose sight of the fact that he just routinely lies about everything and makes up everything. And you sort of, it is a weird way. I don't think he does this on purpose, but it is kind of a way to normalize lying, to start with, or to throw in with the serious lies, a lot of just idiotic, trivial stuff. And then you feel like almost like an idiot fact checking it. So I spent 3 minutes on Google, and it turns out that 2023, the busiest year, I believe, in American aviation history, over 16 million flights, had one of the lowest, maybe the lowest cancellation rate ever, 1.2%. It had a little bit of an uptick in 2022, the year before. Remember, there was that Southwest Airlines, I think, wasn't it them? The computer system melted down or something, and they were like, people were stuck for a day or two. But anyway, this is very, so he just lies and also denigrates America. And what can one say?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there are some serious undertones there that are worth mentioning. We're a third world country. We're a failing nation. No, we didn't play the full clip, but if you want to go watch yourself, you can just take my word for it. Not a hard pushback from Sean Spicer there on the notion that America is a failing nation, that our election systems are third world. Sean Spicer is living a pretty nice life in the suburbs of DC, on like a D rate TV host. So I don't think that works usually in a failing nation, but he's doing okay. And the airport thing, more people, more people flew on Memorial Day than ever.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's crazy. Like we've had record travel this summer. Which I think there's commentary both on whether we're a failing nation or not, but also whether our economy is failing and how bad could the economy really be? How much is inflation really hurting everybody if no one's vacations are being, well, not no one's, but if at the median people are not being affected in their summer vacation plans. And so, but here we go. And, Trump just gets to lie about that without any, I guess there should be some. Is there now without any repercussion? I feel like I'm sounding like JVL. There is some repercussion. This is why Donald Trump is not winning this race right now, right? Because people find him disgusting.
I mean, I guess, but he should be losing by a heck of a lot more. No, I landed at BWI, Baltimore, Washington, Wednesday. I didn't see any tents there. Amazing. You guys all flew out for the panel Thursday and Friday from various places. I take it from New Orleans and Sarah from DC and so forth. It's amazing. Andrew Egger, you all made it there. How could that happen? How could that happen in the modern failing America where every third plane or every is canceled according to Donald Trump?
It's a good question. The Denver airport kind of looks like a tent, but must have been luck. One more thing, I know it's up to us to point out the obvious, but poor Poppy Bush, had the supermarket scanner story, just drag him, just follow him around. Even though it was kind of BS, like he said that he was looking at a cool new scanner, and people are like, "This guy, this effete Kenny Bunkport living coastal elite is so out of touch. He doesn't even know what a supermarket scanner looks like." And it's like Donald Trump doesn't know what it's like to fly with regular people. But I guess that's dog bites man at this point.
I guess Biden he can't do this. I guess so Secret Service have a heart attack, but he should fly commercial to Atlanta on Thursday for the debate, just to make the point that these flights are fine, and I'm one of the regular guys. I've flown commercial a lot in my life, which he has, to be fair, until he became vice president and stuff, which Donald Trump hasn't done for ever, I suppose. I say for 40 years, 50 years. But why do we think I don't know that he ever flew commercial.
Yeah, or on the Biden Acela. Anyway, okay, there's another lie that you wrote about in Morning Shots. People should be signed up for your Morning Shots at thebulwark.com if they're not. Here's Trump talking about, now, years later, he's decided to refute General Kelly. Let's take a listen.
But they made up a suckers and losers statement so terrible. And my stupid people, when I wanted to refute it, they said, "Sir, don't dignify it with a refuttal." Refutal or a refuttal? What the hell word would that be? Refuttal? They'll say, he didn't know refuttal or refutal, but they don't know either.
Rebuttal, I think.
Sir,
Refutation.
It should not be dignified, sir. I say, well, I got to fight that. That's the worst thing you could probably say to me would be that. He said, "Sir, it's going nowhere." 3 years later, it still simmers. And you know what? Anybody in the military, now I fight. I talk about it all the time because it doesn't make sense. Nobody could say a thing like, you can't. Even if you hated the military, you couldn't say that because it would actually be dangerous. It would be so bad. Nobody would say that. So now I speak about it all the time because these people are liars. They make it up. It's now on top of that, you have AI. On top of that, you now have AI.
Seems like a person at the top of their game, mental acuity wise there, Bill. Where do you want to go with that? A lot of places you could take.
Yeah, of course, a lot of the Twitter commentary and other places was on his, failure to use the word rebuttal and getting a little confused about refutal and refuttal and all this. But that is, in fact, not the important part of it. So it's interesting that so Trump brought this up out of the blue, kind of. He's lying about it. He's lying about his lie. That is to say, he did try to refute it right at the time. He tweeted right away on September 3rd, I looked this up, 2020, when Jeff Goldberg's Atlantic piece came up with background with people, anonymous sources at that point, saying that Trump had called the military suckers and losers in the context of not visiting the cemetery in France, and also when he was at Arlington with General Kelly in 2017 for Memorial Day. General Kelly later. So Trump rebuts at the time, both on Twitter and actually that evening, to reporters. So he's pretty conscious of it at the time. So he's lying when he says that the staff persuaded him not to rebut it, and that's kind of why the story's still simmering. The story's still simmering because it's true, because General Kelly in 2022 confirmed it, 2023 maybe, confirmed it in a statement and also a couple of interviews. And so that's why the story is simmering. And then President Biden, indirectly, you might say, kept it alive with his visit to that to the cemetery in France when he was there for D-Day, and because people are rightly outraged about it. And it fits, of course, so much with so many other public things he's said about John McCain and stuff. But it's interesting to me that he raised that it's clearly, somehow it's there in his lizard brain, causing some anxiety or some worry, right? And of course, his first reaction is to lie. The second reaction is to blame the staff, the stupid staff, I love that, which wouldn't let him rebut it allegedly at the time. But it makes me wonder if they have some reason to think that his disdain and more than disdain, his trashing of the military, really disgusting things he said about the military, revealing deep attitudes of his, is hurting him a little bit, that they have some polling that say they told him, that this is a problem. And finally, I think he's thinking about the debate Thursday night and a little worried that this is a pretty effective thing for Joe Biden to bring up.
I think the last thing is for sure. And I want to talk about the debate. But just put a finer point on a few of the facts here in that ramble. It's interesting to know that his staff can prevent him from sending out things on social media. That's news to me. And also, I guess now confirms that I guess his staff approves everything that he pops out there. I didn't realize they'd control the reins there. Refuttal. You might want to know, is a word that existed, but it's virtually obsolete. Neither of the main corpora, American or British, contain a single example of it. So, maybe Trump is just trying to bring it back. This kind of the old English, something to think about. And lastly, the debate thing is obviously on his mind. And I think that's what I want to get into with you next. By the time we next speak, the debate will have happened. Hopefully it will be the beginning of the great Biden comeback. And we'll be in high spirits next Monday. But, you can sense, in situations like these, things that he's trying to, put bumpers around, vulnerabilities he's trying to put bumpers around by talking about them now, but also in this insane, like Joe Biden's on cocaine thing, Joe Biden, the lifelong teetotaler, that they're pushing out there, that if you watch Fox, it's like an hourly topic on Fox now. I mean, it's on constantly. This notion that Joe Biden might be on drugs, a totally preposterous fabrication that now they have like panels about. They're like, what do you think about this thing we made up? Do you think it's true? Do you think it's true? Like, it's like absurd, but it is reflective of their mindset about the debate. So I'm curious what you think first about the Trump perspective going into the debate, and then the Biden.
Yeah, no, and I think, and didn't his press secretary or whatever she is, Catherine Levitt, I think her name is, go on. She was on TV earlier this morning.
Failed congressional candidate. Yeah, Carolyn
Levitt. Yeah, and just launched on CNN, just her first talking point, which was not responsive to the question, was an attack on Jake Tapper and one of the hosts of the debate. And I'm sure she would have gotten to the other host in a second and got cut off by Casey Hunt or whatever. But again, what does that tell us? That they are trying to obviously prepare the groundwork for, well, if you did poorly, it's because of incredibly biased hosts. I still think there's a small chance that he uses that as an excuse, or the drug test for Biden as an excuse not to debate if he really gets worried that it could hurt him. But so far, it looks like it's going ahead. I just hope. So I think Trump's worried. I hope he's right to be worried. I hope Team Biden is really prepared, not just preparing him, but preparing the other things. So to take this one thing we just discussed on John Kelly, I hope someone's been in touch with John Kelly to, just encourage him to come forward that night if Trump lies again, or the next morning, and say, and go on some interview and just say, of course it's true, I didn't make it up, and unfortunately Donald Trump's lying again. And if he wants to add that people shouldn't vote for Donald Trump for president, which I'm sure John Kelly believes, and if he wants to add they might even consider voting for Joe Biden, that would be fine too. But I think, in other words,
it would be nice if anybody's out there who is pals with John Kelly, and you can just take that little clip. We can do a little screen record and just send it right over to him. Happy to share that. And
if he wants to come on your podcast Friday morning, and use that as the occasion, I think can I take the liberty of inviting him to do so? And
please, John Kelly, you have an open invitation to join the Bulwark Podcast anytime.
So look, I think in general, Biden's been doing better, and so in that respect, Trump's a little worried. On the other hand, Biden also has the higher, I think, more upside and more downside, don't you think? I mean, that the downside obviously is that he looks faltering and very old and so forth. The upside is that that there are 2 or 3 blows landed of the kind we just described. For me, the key just advice to Biden would be don't defend it's so hard when you're up there not to defend your own record, not to explain what you've done. And I don't mean this in some kind of vanity thing, though there's some of that too, of course, but just, someone criticizes you and you'll say, no, wait a second, here's the job numbers, here's this. I think it's very important that you be forward looking and really mostly paint the picture of how genuinely dangerous and terrible a Trump second term would be, and to some degree do a little more painting of a picture of what a Biden second term might accomplish.
So that was also Jared Polis's advice. We get to that in that interview in a little bit. So you and Governor Polis are aligned. I might be misaligned from you guys on this, just in one sense. Well, in two ways, actually. One, I think that he has to at least make the things are better than they were 4 years ago case. Like, you might not remember it, but but crime is down. Like, the immigration border numbers are down. The economy is up, right? Like things are moving in the right direction. Yeah, we have more work to do, blah, blah, blah. You got to go do all that stuff. But I do think it's important to at least refute some basic facts, because Trump's going to lie about how, this is a third world economy and America's terrible, blah, blah. You have to at least do a little bit of that. Don't get upset. I agree with you sometimes. And traditionally in these debates, in the first debate, that's why it's been a problem for the incumbent president, because they feel the need to refute every detail about the record. I agree with you in that point, but I think they've got to get a little out. And I don't know. What about the offensive side of things? Like, I think that he has to have some punches for Trump, rather than just focus on positive vision.
I totally agree with that. I think, in fact, most of it should be about the danger of Trump, less about the virtues of Biden. Very hard for people to internalize that, because, candidates and presidents like to talk about their virtues more than they like to. But Biden's been pretty good at punching at Trump, I'd say, for the last 3-4 weeks, better, honestly. Okay. I think there's some obvious things. So and I wonder if the Biden team was thinking of this when they proposed this date. I think it's more their proposal than Trump's in terms of the date. This is the final week of the Supreme Court term, or almost this final week. We have big decisions. Today is the anniversary of Dobbs. I think Biden can do a lot with, you appointed the justices who reversed Roe. Without Trump justices, it doesn't happen. You've got judges doing other things in terms of guns and so forth that are way outside the mainstream, and you've got extremist judges. And you will put on, if you become president, you shouldn't say you, I'll come back to that in a minute, but if my opponent were to become president, we will have even more extreme courts and even more extreme curtailments of our liberties. I think the courts it's conventional view that it's not a great issue. Who thinks, courts is sort of a second order thing. People don't think of that. But I kind of think in this case, the week of Dobbs 2 years ago, it's a pretty good issue. I also think, and this is a point my friend Jeff Toulis made when we were having lunch last week, maybe Biden shouldn't even address Trump. He should just say, I want to speak to the American people. And I want to speak to all the American people, including voters who are inclined to vote for my opponent. And I respect all of you. I want to work for all Americans. I have been working for all Americans. But in effect, make clear that he doesn't consider Trump a worthy person to have an argument with, because Trump's just a liar, and sort of talk about my opponent says this or my opponent did this, but talk about him in the third person. Maybe that's a little too stilted and artificial and wouldn't work. I don't know. I'm not a great debate, strategist or anything, but I think it would convey a sense of disdain for Trump, but without disdaining all the swing vote, the voters out there who might be inclined to consider Trump, but Biden needs to win over.
I feel like that's the kind of thing that sounds good.
Yeah,
and
fair enough.
Practice is hard to work. I will say, this is the thing for me with Biden. When Biden is good, like when Biden is at his best, he's more casual in his speech. So I kind of hate that they put him in these more stilted speech environments. Like Biden's best moments are always like kind of almost the face that he made at Marjorie Taylor Greene, and then he's looking at Trump. And he's like, this guy. I really, I would almost try to diminish him in that sense, right?
Okay.
It's like, this guy caused the storming of the Capitol. Like, what? Can you believe can you believe this guy? Do you want this person to have a majority of the Supreme Court? I agree with you on the court side of things in that context, like specifically the Dobbs case, but also in macro. I don't know. I think it might make a few people, at least some of those Haley voters, some people and some younger, who knows? But logically, you would think that some people might make them blanch a little bit to just be aware of the fact that Donald Trump will have appointed a bare majority on the Supreme Court. Do you really want the Supreme Court majority to be all Trump picks? I think that there's a certain group of people that might hit home with.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those issues that obviously Biden's base is appalled by the prospect of more Alitos and Thomases and other Trump picks, including at the lower court level. But swing voters are very much with Biden on guns and on abortion and on contraception and on IVF and so forth. And I think it's totally fair, incidentally, for Biden to, ascribe to a second Trump term what Trump's supporters say they're going to do in such a term.
For sure.
Make Trump disavow them. Make Trump say, oh, no, Clarence Thomas is much more right-wing than I am. I wouldn't even dream of doing it. For then we'll have a little fight between Clarence Thomas fans and, he wants to get rid of contraception, apparently, and Trump fans. So make him disavow heritage. I think it causes problems in your own side if you can drive those wedges. But I think, ascribe to Trump the worst of MAGA, which is they're all supporting him. It's totally fair. And I think really paint a picture, and I think it's a totally true picture. I think of what how dangerous a Trump second term would be. That should be the key thing. The key thing should be, this is not, and I think it's clever. And Michael Scherer had a good piece on this, right? I mean, Biden had to figure out a way to sort of take care of the fact that people looked at the first term, the guardrails mostly held. There were people in there who stopped Trump from doing a lot of things. And people now say, well, look, the first term wasn't that terrible. In fact,
they tried to kill the vice president.
Yeah, believe me, I'm with you. And January 6th has been memory hold and all that. But still, an amazing number of voters have rationalized their way into thinking the first term wasn't so bad. And I think his notion of that he's become unhinged because of January 6th, he's giving a permission structure to people who voted for Trump once or twice, or maybe sat it out, to say, you know what, it would be different this time. It would be worse this time. He needs to do that, I think.
Yeah. It's a good talking point. I don't agree with it, but I think it's a good talking point.
Right. No, I don't agree with it either. Right, exactly.
Right.
Yeah,
like,
totally.
I just as a factual matter, like this notion that like something cracked in Trump and when he lost in 2020 and then he got really crazy. Like, I think Trump's been like kind of steadily becoming just little by little, a little more crazy, since like 1982, but basically the same person. I don't think there's any big break. That said, I agree with you. I think it's a good talking point. And there's a certain group of people, I can think of somebody in my life that is like, that went for Trump in 2020, that January 6th was a final straw for them. Right. And so it gives that group, which might be waffling or might be gettable for Trump to win back. And it's something to lean on, right? This notion of, it was fine, but he went crazy with this stop the steal stuff in the January 6th, and now he's off his rocker, and we can't do it again. I think that's a good talking point. Okay, last thing. We do have some primaries tomorrow across the country. In New York, I want to mention two. We have George Latimer, who is being supported by a bunch of center-left groups, including AIPAC, running against Jabal Bowman, who is being supported basically by AOC, I think, and some others. And Bowman, frankly, AOC has been pretty responsible, I think, across a wide variety of issues in a way that Bowman has not, at least in my opinion, both rhetorically and, the weird fire alarm pull and, some of the things that, some of his more anti-Semitic statements, frankly. And so, anyway, I want your take on that race, but I also want to mention we have John Avalon, friend of the pod. So if you're in his district, that primary is Tuesday. He has a primary as well. And in Colorado, I was talking to Polis after the interview, and there are two DSA left Democrats in the state house that are being primaried by more mainline Democrats. I wouldn't even call them moderate, but just middle of the road Democrats. It'll be interesting, I think, to see whether there's a little bit of a picture here. This is something that's not happening in the Republican Party, which is why I think it's worth bringing up. People are always like, why don't you focus more on having the Republicans, get back to normal? And it's like, well, if you look at the primaries, like in the Republican side, it's the normal ones who are being primaried by crazy people. And sometimes it's like crazy people who are being primaried by even crazier people. And the Democratic side, we have a couple of examples of some of their more extreme members being primaried tomorrow by more mainline members. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. So the floor is yours, just on that broadly, or on the Bowman Latimer race.
On broadly, I do think it's important. I think it's also such a talking point for the, Wall Street Journal wanting to justify their vote for Trump types. The Democratic Party is just, I've gone so far left. The left is just driving the train. It's unbelievable. And people like me or you say, well, really? Biden, Janet Yellen, Tony Blinken, where exactly is this? Well, it's down in the bowels of the bureaucracy, and also at the congressional level. Look what's happening, their squad and stuff. It would be
Did
important.
Did you see the spokesperson for the EPA wanted to defund the police? That was going around on social media.
I know.
The spokesperson for the EPA is a leftist, and what do we, how can I must vote for Trump? Because I'm sure Trump's EPA spokesman is going to be just a very straight and narrow guy.
I mean, it is, yes. So anyway, I think it's useful if Latimer, it's in New York, it has media attention. That district, New York 16, is it's some of the Bronx and then up into Westchester. Our son and daughter-in-law, and the little kids live in that district in Westchester. And I would say we visited them, as it happens, a couple of weekends ago. The amount of, I live in Virginia, Northern Virginia, kind of swingish area. So we get a fair amount of campaign mail, the stuffs, postcards and so forth, and brochures and what do they call flyers, still the old fashioned stuff as well as the texts and the emails. It's insane up there. I mean, they were getting 3 a day for Latimer or against Bowman. They're in the Latimer leaning part of the district, and their own voting history would suggest, a Latimer vote in a primary. So this is, I guess, will be the most expensive congressional race maybe in a primary, I think, in history. And I think Latimer will win. He's the Westchester County executive too, so he has some advantage of being an incumbent against an incumbent, kind of, But it'll be good. It'll be good if he wins, because Bowman has been the most irresponsible of them, of pretty much of the squad, I think, and the most outspoken. John Avlon, it would be great if he could make it. I would throw
Corey Bush in that camp as well.
Yeah, Bush and Bowman. And Bush, I think, may lose. So that would be, I do think, and then Avlon winning, a very moderate guy, kind of a no-labels guy, before no labels went off the rails. Yeah. I think John was involved in starting that, friend of the Bulwark and so forth. So, suddenly it's like, really, how left-wing exactly is this Democratic Party? And that's New York, incidentally. That's not the Democratic governor of Kentucky or the Democratic governor of North Carolina or anything, So I think it would be important if Latimer wins, and I think he could win pretty easily, and if Avlon's the nominee in Suffolk County.
All right. Well, thank you, Bill Kristol. A little bit shortened today, so because we got the Polis interview on deck, we'll be back.
I'm looking forward to seeing that. And speaking of Democrat, he's a pretty responsible and moderate Democrat and pro-business and so forth, governing a pretty important state out there in Colorado.
We do a lot of issue talk. We have a little fun too, but we do a lot of issue talk, and absolutely, Jared Polis. This is why I was like, I think it's funny. I get in Colorado events on these panels, you get questions from people, and they're like, why can't we have a party that respects business but also doesn't hate anybody, isn't cruel? Like, why can't we have somebody like that? I get these questions from like rich people at panels, and like when they happen in Colorado, I want to be like, well, your governor is that, the mayor of Denver, Mike Johnson, is that, the president of the United States is that. I mean, you kind of do have that happening here. So anyway, it's an interesting interview. I hope folks will enjoy it. We'll be back with Bill next Monday post-debate. There will be much to discuss, and I'll be back here tomorrow to do it all over again. We'll see y'all later. Peace.